In today's Leadership Initiative episode, we're going to talk about what it takes when you are leading major change, and maybe you're even starting from ground zero. What are the keys to being an effective leader and change agent when all those things seemingly are against you? You're going to learn some really good stuff today.
At InitiativeOne, we're igniting a leadership revolution by helping organizations eliminate the drama, improve decision-making, and win as a team. Join Dr. Fred Johnson on the Leadership Initiative podcast as we uncover insights to maximize your impact and transform your life.
Welcome to the Leadership Initiative. I'm Dr. Fred Johnson. I'm the founder of InitiativeOne, and we are eager to get rolling today. I get to introduce to you a dear friend, a colleague, Josh Moon. Josh is the athletic director. He's got a compelling story about what is happening, where he is the athletic director of the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. He has, you don't know Josh yet, but just keep his name in your mind. He is one of the up-and-coming real gems or diamonds in college athletics. I've been following him. We've become dear friends. The stuff that he has been able to achieve in such a short period of time in his career is just profoundly impressive. Josh, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join and to spend a few minutes with us and the InitiativeOne family.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks.
You're welcome. So we're just going to talk. Josh, a couple years ago, UWGB had the fortune of being, or the misfortune of being, one of the most challenging Division I men's basketball programs in the country in terms of win and loss. I mean, what were we, 3-29?
Yeah.
And you had to come in and make some really hard decisions very quickly. Because men's basketball in a school like ours is one of the things that drives a lot of other components of an athletic program. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Especially with no football. I mean, it's men's and women's basketball. Yeah.
So you came in, we were 3-29 the year before, and last year, I had the fortune you asked me to be part of the search committee, and I was able to see behind the scenes all of the moving parts that are involved in something like that. And I just saw one sport. And how many sports do you oversee?
We have 14 Division I sports. So a lot of moving parts.
And every single one of them are like, we were talking, the strength of very successful athletic coaches is their egos. The weakness is often their egos. And you have to somehow take these 14 coaches that every single one of them have a mindset, and they better have this mindset, that their program is absolutely key. And they want you to pay attention and give top priority to their world. So you got 14 competing interests of very strong personalities that are driven. How in the world do you lead and pull all of those they're part of the same team, but they've got their own team? What have you seen is critical to keep them together as a common team for a larger mission in the athletic department for the organization?
That's the challenge. That's the fun. I think it's, this world we're in with Division I athletics, it's so turbulent. And the challenging thing is you don't really know what the next 6 months or 3 months or 3 days are going to be. So you've had this model that's been in place largely for 30 or 40 years, since the last big change in maybe the early 80s. So being able to be comfortable in a very uncomfortable environment, where for coaches, especially coaches that have been in business a while, that's like, how do you do that? That's really, really hard to do something that you've been a part of your entire life, and then all of a sudden it just gets flipped on its head. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just like, we don't have all the answers. I'm not sure where the money's coming from, but we're going to get through it together. And our chancellor does a great job of really at this point, it's a survive and advance mentality. It's like NC State back in '83, men's basketball, survive and advance, right? And they end up winning the championship. That's the same mentality that we have, is we're looking long term, but how do we focus on what's in front of us, and how can we be nimble and attack those challenges, and then keep everybody motivated and on the same page?
I look back, it's no secret to you that I grew up in Indiana, and I love Indiana basketball, specifically Indiana University basketball. And I remember in the early 2000s, they lost every member of their team but 3 people, and everybody thought it was the end of the world, and it was crisis, and it was going to take 4 or 5 years, and it took them 4 or 5 years to recover. And yet today, it's this incredible thing is going on that if you don't lose because of the NIL, if you don't lose your entire team, that's a surprise. And not only do you not have 5 years to recover, you better make it seamless and reload and go on. What's it like to lead in an environment that has this kind of hyper unpredictable change, and yet you are tasked with bringing stability in an ongoing incredible change environment that's always on the verge? Well, sometimes it's not on the verge, it is chaotic. How is that what you signed up for?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, I've been in this about 20 years now, and, it goes back to, the leadership, your core principles of, for me, it's having that conviction of why you're doing this and what you believe in, and then the daily intentionality, where, especially at a place like Green Bay, where we don't have 500 student athletes or 20 sports or, these huge budgets. So we better be really intentional with everything we do.
And you don't have a multi-million-dollar foundation that's there as a piggy bank to borrow from anytime you want to.
So the little things matter for us. And then those, I've been telling our coaches even this last week, let's not let the little things turn into big things, because we can control those. We're fairly nimble with 14 sports. So, and then thinking differently, where you talked about men's basketball, where our new coach, Doug Gottlieb, he's embracing the fact that we may have student athletes that leave after a year, and he's using that as a recruiting pitch versus maybe a coach even a couple years ago would have been mortified at that, like, oh, there's no way we can talk about that. So he's flipping that ahead and thinking differently. This year he landed a top 150 recruit here, and the pitch there was playing time. It still mattered. But then, hey, if you come here, do well, hopefully you can stay, get opportunities here, but he's going to have opportunities elsewhere if he chooses to do that. So I think that mentality, that shift in mindset has to happen.
So what have you found on those days that you want to pull your hair out? Because whether it's athletics or leading a corporation or an athletic team, professional athletic team, there are those days that you go, man, do I want to keep doing this? If you have passion, you're going to have those days. When you have those days, what keeps you going when you're really questioning your sanity and whether you want to keep doing this? What have you found that you lean on that gives you resilience and staying power?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, I think for me, it's probably family, and being able to, the challenge I have is, and for any leader out there, is like, for a long time, and I still struggle with this, is how do you not take that home with you? where especially in this job, it is 24/7, and it just, this year, Mother's Day, our head men's basketball coach left, and Mother's Day was shot. That was gone. So we had to make a decision immediately and move forward in really 48 hours to make sure that we could get our roster and recruit and all that stuff. So it's hard in this profession, especially because it literally, cause people would think, well, it's the summer, you're just taking it easy, you're hitting the golf course, and summer's really the busiest time because you're prepping, you're talking to donors, you're bringing recruits in, you're getting coaches acclimated. So I think the biggest thing is, for me, it's the family does give me some balance. I got to do a better job of not taking work home and figuring that out. Maybe jumping on a Xbox console and playing around with my kids a little bit. Just kind of just like getting your brain to a place where you're like, okay, I can go play Halo or something and just relax and not have to worry about anything for an hour, right? Stuff like that's really important. So what are those hobbies or what are those things you can do? It's important. I got to do a better job of it.
You have a beautiful wife and two awesome kids, two awesome boys, and they're in high school now.
Yeah.
And yet you're in a demanding profession that there's never a downtime. There's never a down season. There's never like you said, okay, I've got 2 months to take a breath. What are essentials that you've learned over 20 years that are critical in staying fresh as a leader when people are always pulling from you?
You got to be able to celebrate the little victories. And I'm not saying I do a great job of this, but I think I've taken more time to, coming here and the shape the department was in. It was really in just with COVID and everything, it was in a challenging situation. So hitting reset and then building relationships and being able to, celebrate some of those things that maybe at my previous stop, I wouldn't have celebrated, but for where we are at, like, hey, that's actually a really big victory. We just got a donor to commit a major gift to men's and women's basketball this week. And I just told our staff, like, that is like, let's celebrate that somebody believes so much in what you all are doing and what this university is about, that they made that decision. Like, so let's celebrate that and enjoy that and then use it as a model to keep building on. So I think celebrating those singles or doubles, and then eventually the home runs happen. That's when you feel like that's why you're in this profession is, you get the wins and losses, right? So in the games, that's all fun because you actually get to see a Division I product, wins and losses. But it's so much below, beyond that, where when you watch a game, I'm not even in. Yeah, it matters, but it's everything else that goes into it that you got to kind of celebrate some of that stuff.
It's so easy when you're a senior leader of an organization that you see behind the scenes all the things that so-called are going wrong. Your part of your job is to be a constant problem fixer. And it's so easy to get a distorted picture that everything is screwed up, and yet you have laid out, it sounds simple, but it's huge, that if you're going to navigate in the long run, you've got to celebrate wins, the small wins. And not only do you have to celebrate them, you have to keep lifting them up to other coaches who, just like, as soon as the coaching mantra is, okay, we won, we've got an hour to celebrate, let's focus on tomorrow. Well, sometimes you need to focus a little bit more than an hour because it's those wins and celebrating the wins that give you the staying power on those days that our voices are talking to us about, do we really want to do this or not? You mentioned this comment about don't make the little things the big things. Talk to us about what that means.
Yeah, I think I'm sure every organization, there's these things that you have to do. and they're important. Now they're not going to be big picture things, but if you don't take care of them, they become big issues, and then it pulls away from what you're trying to do, what your mission is. Or like for me, I talk to our coaches about the more time I spend on stuff that you could be doing or you could be holding your staff accountable to, is less time that we're focusing on the home runs or the triples, where we're getting a major gift for this or planning this next phase of how we're going to deal with this NCAA settlement that's going to happen here in January. How are we going to shift to a pay for play model for Division I athletics, which is happening. So we need to spend time on that. Like I need to spend time on that stuff. I can't spend time on the stuff that still is important, but those are things that our coaches, maybe they haven't been used to doing, or they've not been held accountable with that stuff. So how do you balance that they can see that, it's can't see this forest for the trees concept where, you're just focusing on some of that, some of the little things, and then unable to see the big picture, but those little things do matter. So it's kind of a balance where, I think it's been a challenge of how to communicate that, where they can see these things that they just aren't getting taken care of, and how that impacts the entire picture of what they're trying to do.
We deal with 23, 24 different professional fields, and I'm thinking of a public school district that we're dealing with right now, that they've had major turnaround, a lot like the major turnarounds that you're seeing. And they were in the lowest 15, 20% of all the school districts in their state. And when the superintendent came in, they were satisfied. They were satisfied at being in the bottom 15% because they had a rhythm. You came in, I believe the men's basketball program was in one of the absolute worst of what? How many men's
362. We were at the bottom.
Right there.
Yeah.
And so you come in and you have to be a major change agent. Mm-hmm. And yet whenever you're a leader and you're a change agent, effective leader and a change agent, which are the same, you're going to get blowback. You're going to get pushback. And how do you handle it when there's always some people in every organization that are comfortable with being comfortable?
Yeah.
What have you done to stay the course? Because to them, you're a fly in their ointment. Mm-hmm. You're a nuisance to them. And how do you handle that? How do you lead through that? That's the essence of what you've been doing for 3 years.
It's challenging, and I think every organization has that. I think universities by nature, have maybe more of that, or school districts where it's just the nature of, I'm in a system, or this is the way we do it. There's maybe a lot of steps through each process, maybe more than obviously more than a private business has. So you kind of get those feelings built up, right? So just, I think, understanding that exists, and then challenging people, and then holding them accountable in a way that keeps them motivated. That's not easy to do, because sometimes those organizations, the accountability is gone because we're just punching the clock, and we've had that
just
to some
going
degree.
Through the motions.
Yeah, like, hey, no, we can't. Well, is that actually true, or is that just because it's the easiest thing to do?
Yes.
Because I don't really feel like doing it. So you got to peel that back and really dig deep and get that answer. I think that's probably my strength and weakness, is how do you not spend too much time on that? But I am tenacious, relentless in that aspect, where we're going to do everything we can, and within the rules, within the system procedures and the NCAA and all that stuff. But we're going to ask questions, and we're going to push and put ourselves in the best position, and then make sure our employees understand where we're going. And if they're not on the bus, then they shouldn't be there, right? And how do you delicately explain that and keep people motivated?
So for those of you who are leading an organization that has required a significant turnaround, it will require every single time pure tenaciousness, and tenaciousness is always fueled by a belief in yourself that you know that you know that you know. Walk us through what has fueled your tenaciousness, and what do the voices look like in your head that keep you going, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do that? Because there are leaders who are watching that are going through some real challenges right now. And you've been through, I mean, you've already been named by so many, media outlets as perhaps already the most influential athletic director in the history of this university. I mean, you are having a deep impact. What do your voices tell you, and what do you do to quiet those voices and then refuel yourself? Because there are people that need to know that for themselves.
Yeah, that's really important. And been to a few think tanks, so that's helped in being able to understand those voices. And I think for me, I finally got it. I think when I was at Central Michigan, I had a boss there that I shared an office with. He's now the AD at Bowling Green State, and I learned so, like, the light switch went off. So I think finding somebody who you're like, okay, this person gets it, and this guy his name is Derek Vandermeer. He is tenacious, and he is, like, if you watch them, like, everything they do, the guy is just, he's on it. He is his work ethic, his belief, and everything there. So I learned that right when I went to, I didn't know that, I grew up as a son of a high school football coach and being around sports and playing college football. I kind of got some of it, but I didn't have that extra, whatever, 20% or whatever that is, where you have to have it in this position, right? You have to be
that extra gear
where you're just, every single day you're going to win that day, and you're going to do better than your competition, right? And in business, I'm sure business folks or school districts, everybody has that, but like for here, feeling that if we don't do this or make that phone call, that you're putting the future of the organization at risk, or the student athletes, right? So how do you feel that urgency and weight? And then back to your question on the voices, where you just have to, you just got to say, okay, I'm the right person for this position. There's a reason why I'm here. I've put in 20 years. I have all this experience, and there's not a better person in the country than me for this. Like, telling yourself that. No different than I tell my son, like, he's playing high school football, and right before that first kickoff or punt return, that you're the best player on the field. You hear NFL guys say, like, I'm the best player on the field. And sometimes, like, you're like, well, you're not. Come on, I give a speech and I feel like I could have done better. Hypercritical of myself. So early in my career, I would give a speech about compliance, and you could tell everybody's sleeping. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody likes compliance, especially in college athletics. And I would go back and just beat myself up for the next 2 hours. Like, okay, that was, it was probably like a B-, but I should have got an A. What can I improve? And so just learning through that, we're kind of putting those voices away and just saying, okay, I hone my craft, and I focused on getting better and not being so hard on myself, I think, is the other thing too, where I would, again, spend 2 hours just beating myself up, and instead focus on, okay, that's done. Now we're going to get after this thing. And so I having a mentor and somebody that clearly gets it, and you can see what they're doing in the actions, that was really important for me.
When you first started, there was momentum, but it was backward momentum. The hardest thing to do when you are in a turnaround, the hardest thing to do is not establishing positive momentum. It is stopping the negative momentum. And that is actually harder than stopping at a place where where things are in a standstill. So you came in and you stopped the negative momentum, and now you've got to take this freight train from 0, and you've got to start getting that up to 60. And during that period, you got a lot of folks that are watching saying, he'll never do it. She'll never do it. No way. And we tell people that for every action as a leader, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you have deep belief that is necessary, there are going to be people who have deep unbelief because that's their rhythm. And when you get that blowback, how have you learned, or for me, this is a constant learning, how not to take that personal? We call it how not to make it about your mama. How have you learned how to turn that into data that's inevitable rather than a personal attack that clearly shows that I'm doing something wrong?
Yeah, it took a while to learn that where, okay, people say thick skin is important, but you're still a person and like you're still going to internalize that stuff. But how do you, I think the challenge for any leader is you internalize it, but then you don't let it sit there and it doesn't eat you up. So you go home and it's hard to do. You go home and you're thinking about it at 9:30 at night and you're like, you can't sleep. And that's where, okay, there's clearly that issue got to you. So it's back to having that core of like, I feel it right now of like, we have to, like, we're just going to, the people that say you can't do it. I mean, I love that fuel. I mean, we had it, the last school I was at where people said, you will not build an on-campus football stadium. It's not going to happen here. And we ended up with a $50 million, the best Division II football facility in the country that was on campus. So that fueled me. So I think it's back to being maybe a Division III athlete where, you don't have anything. You just have to, you got to work harder, faster, and have that belief that you can get after it. So I think that helped, being a small town kid and my parents are teachers. You didn't have much. I think that helped fueled me for some of the things I'm doing now where you just have that again, that tenacious, relentless work ethic and belief in yourself, and then applying that to, all the daily things you're going to do.
So one of the things that I've watched you do is you came in and there was hardly any belief except from you. And there were days that I remember you would call me. You were looking for those 2 or 3 or 4 believers in the entire community who could see beyond the moment. And not only see the moment, see beyond the moment, but some days have even more belief than you had at that moment. I see part of your success is finding those people who are believers when no one else is believing. How have you done that?
And that's what it's all about is we're in the belief and feeling business, like no question, where we need those people to be like, we need them more than they need us, right? So the belief of what can a transformational Division I institution do for this community? What if UW Green Bay could be 20,000 students driving the workforce, everything that you possibly could want for this amazing, region we live in? That's what a Division I school does. So people can, you said it perfect, where sometimes those people believe more than you do, right? And for me coming in here, it was refreshing to have a core group of 3 or 4 people that once you built a relationship, you could feel it come out of them. And one of them in particular, his belief started when our women's basketball team was beating Brittany Griner and Baylor in the NCAA tournament. And how can little old Green Bay women's basketball be beating the number 1 team in the country with, a player that can dunk? And his belief and his family's belief at that moment of what that could do for his business, and then it carried forward to, to being again, a strong supporter and believer, and then sharing that belief with all his network. Like that's what's special.
But
that's awesome.
Here's the cool thing. You always tell me that you struggle with vulnerability, but I don't believe that. Some of the early conversations that we had when you were trying, especially right after you had made a difficult decision of changing a coach whose father was a legend in the coaching community in the Big Ten, that was not easy. And I remember you just being appropriate but real with me and saying, "Man, this is hard." Any advice that you would give me? It was your vulnerability and your being real that propelled my belief even more. And the lesson that you've taught me is if you want to build belief, be real, be authentic, and just tell people where you are. And people will appreciate that level of sincerity and honesty so much that they want to be part of your team. I frankly, when I began to be I'd been here for 17 years and had never attended a single UWGB basketball game, men or women. And yet, within 6 months, I am all in. I mean, I'm losing sleep over stuff. I'm all in. I didn't do that because initially I believed in UWGB. I did that because I believed in you. That's where people will often, before they buy into the vision of the organization, they have to buy into the visionary himself or herself. And they do that through authentic relationships. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit for when you're in an environment that you feel trusted, that your words are not going to be used against you or to come back to bite you, which is a fear that we all have about being vulnerable. You took that risk. And, you introduced me to some pretty cool leaders around the community that they were just looking for someone to believe in like yourself. And you've done a magnificent job, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of work left, but yeah, it's been good. It's been a fun ride, and what a great community. That the cool thing here is it is like we're just scratching the surface here. Of what can happen and what this community deserves from a Division I program.
As you're looking to a leader out there that's trying to lead bold change, and maybe they're just starting, and all they see are the problems, and there's not a lot of momentum yet. A lot of belief has not been established yet, and they're talking to themselves in the middle of the night. What would you say to that leader based on what you told yourself?
There's a reason that you're there, and go back to that core of why you're in that profession, and have belief, have somebody you can pick up the phone, like Fred was saying, being able to I don't know, vent's the right word, but just being able to share, be vulnerable, and say, hey, I'm having a tough time, and this is, so I do that with a couple of our donors too. It's really good where we can talk through some things, and even our chancellor, he has the same network where you got to be able to share stuff. You keep it bottled up. I love your
chancellor. He is an amazing dude.
He's amazing. So being able to be around people that can lift you up and then get you back to that core of why you're in this profession, why you believe in, for our case, our student athletes and coaches, and what that means for a community, right? And it's really important. And that's why Division I athletics is such a big deal in this country. Just think about what would happen if there's no Division I athletics. Yeah. It's so important. Indiana basketball, my gosh, can you imagine that? So you hear those voices, get back to your core, find that web of people that have got you from day one. So I have a group of those people too that I can provide that little feedback for, and I need that. So don't keep it bottled up, right?
Lean heavy into your family. Work on your self-talk, as I've heard you talk about, and stay tenacious. Mm-hmm. And your self-belief, you can't ask other people to believe in something that you don't believe in. And I think that's a big part of your success. I can't wait to continue to watch the journey of the university, to watch your journey. You are an inspiration to so many, and you're an inspiration to me too, Josh.
Appreciate it.
It is great to have you, brother.
Thank you.
You all, thank you for joining us. Now you see why he's so special and why I count him as an honor to be his friend and to have him as a friend. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.